All right, welcome to Unapologetically Male, where we are surviving society's stigmas, standards, and systems. Want to give a shout out to my co-host EJ Stewart. Special shout out to Jay Pope, Jennifer Pope, and Associates for giving us this idea to kind of push forward. Here, we just want to highlight African American men and their stories of success, as well as highlighting, how mental health plays a part in, where we to get to where we get to in our level of success. On today, we have Brother Muhammad, who's going to share a little bit about himself. I'm going to give him the floor now so he can just kind of give us a little background, tell us about your history, where you grew up, and how did you get to where you are right now?
I appreciate it. First and foremost, I want to thank y'all brothers for even having this platform for us to come and speak our truth. Very comfortable environment, so definitely I'm here to share. So let's see how much I can pull out of me, because I tend to be reserved. So but today I'm opening up. So I'm originally from North New Jersey. Believe it or not, Baltimore, we always hear this saying, when you get in trouble, you get sent down south. Baltimore was my south.
Got you.
So they ain't sent me south enough. They sent me from one to another.
Yeah,
but,
brick city to charm city.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to get sent to Baltimore at an early age. Maybe started when I was 16, and I used to go back and forth. So when it was time for me to go to college, one of the blessings was that I could play baseball. And I got picked up by Morgan, and I had a partial scholarship. But more than anything, what's interesting, and I really talk about this, what's interesting is when I was in high school, I never did well in school. Like, I never saw a B. I ain't get a B in gym. So going to college was a heavy transition for me. But I think the beautiful thing about me going to an HBCU was that the professors around me wasn't going to allow me to fail. Like, whatever I had in me, they were able to pull out of me, even though I didn't know it was there myself. But that strong personality, that opinionated young man was early on forced into entrepreneurship because I was a psych major, and I was a psych major kind of by relation. At the time, to me, my big brother was Abdul at Morgan, right? Trying to keep me on the right. Believe it or not, at that time, he was trying to keep me on the right path. So that first job I had, it was tough for me because I worked in a group home. I worked in a group home in East Baltimore, and the kids in the group home at the time wasn't that much old or younger than I was. Young men, but they were pretty much warehousing these kids. And me being in that environment, it was tough because these was the same young brothers that I grew up with. That I did, I was around the way with. I did good and I did bad with, but they was my people. And now I'm in an environment where I'm supposed to help them. And in reality, the only thing that was going on was we was in there playing video games together. It was no real therapeutic growth. And that discontentment just pushed me to start something at Morgan, which at the time was K.E.Y.S, which allowed us to take kids or these young brothers and these young sisters from group homes, and particularly at the time in East Baltimore, and bring them to Morgan's campus and just allow them to experience what that was. That within itself was therapeutic. Now, I did some other slick stuff with it because I told DSS I was doing a therapeutic program, and I can talk about it now.
I'm about to say, are we allowed to talk about? Are you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
That's your limitations. Allegedly, I was doing a therapeutic program, but in essence, I was using my professors and the relationships I had with my professors to really do groups with these young people. But really, they was taking me through the same process they were taking these young people through, and we were going through it together. And from that point, that was kind of the start of I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to infuse myself in a place where I could coexist with young brothers and young sisters who had similar experiences to me. However, because of whatever reason, didn't have the opportunity for exposure. Sports allowed me to have some exposure. And that exposure, not the sports, that exposure is what changed the trajectory of my life. So that's, to a certain extent, that's where I come from. And at this point, I lead an organization called K.E.Y.S, which is a branch off of what I established back then at Morgan. It's called K.E.Y.S Development. There are different components of it, but that's where we are now.
Does the K.E.Y.S, is it all just K.E.Y.S, or is it an acronym, or is it just K.E.Y.S, or what made you? How did that come to be the name, and where did that come from?
Nah, that's a great question. So it's an acronym.
Okay.
It stands for, it's two other brothers and a sister that initially we were just trying to do work for these young brothers and sisters on Morgan's campus. So the acronym stands for Keep Encouraging Youth to Succeed. So yeah, it's definitely for me something that means a lot, just because we came up with that as 20-year-olds, right? We were young, but it just speaks to, not for myself, but when that energy is put in the right place, what young people can establish. And it's not due to what I did as a professional. That's really, it gives testament to what I did and other young brothers and sisters did to when we was just 20.
Absolutely.
Cool. So what are some of the things that, like, I would say some of the stigmas that you had to navigate with being a young African American business owner of a mental health almost organization? Like, what are some of the stigmas or some of the the barriers that you came up against to kind of get to where you are now?
I think the first stigma was that in reality, and we're talking about early on, we're talking about 2004, 2003, maybe 2003, right? So we're talking about 2003 as a young man starting a business. That I wasn't about my business. That I was young and black and I was low fat. Like all the way around. I mean, in the business community, in the social work and mental health community, I was a 20-year-old black male who wanted to do something for his people, who was focused on a group of people, that kids in group homes, and I wasn't trying to house them. I was trying to do something different and just provide programming for them. The idea that my business actually made sense. And I think that the first thing that I had to navigate was literally our mental health, or our Department of Social Services. Like, real talk. All honesty, they felt like we were doing something that was positive for the young people, but they didn't necessarily feel that a young black male should be leading it. That when I did the same work and I put another face who wasn't black in front of it, then I was able to get a check for the same work I was doing for free.
Wow.
And that's the first barrier that I had to crack. Thankfully, there were at the time there were strong groups like Progressive Life. Big shout out to Progressive Life. because that was one of the first organizations that said, you know what, we see what you're doing, we believe in you, and we're gonna start referring people to you, and we're gonna pay for the service. So that was one thing. I think that the next thing, and we got a lot of social workers now, right? This is everybody want to be a social worker, want to be a therapist, but at the time, it wasn't a lot of males in social work. 2002, 2003, that was going to become therapists.
Right.
That wasn't really there. So the idea that a black male could be a effective therapist, that was another barrier, because the idea was that I was great at resolving crisis. If somebody got shot, if somebody died, oh, we got somebody for him. We got Muhammad. Muhammad knows about that stuff. But for me to actually be a good therapist, like I came from a point where I was just that person, and at the time I was with University of Maryland. No problem. I call people. I call everybody out. So I can be shy with y'all.
Talk your talk, brother.
Gotcha.
I was with University of Maryland, and I was with long-standing with Catholic Charities. And the idea that I was put in a box, it just forced me to then go, all right, I got to go to Cornell, and I'm gonna get this certification. I'm gonna get this CBT certification, and I'm gonna actually have this specialty. And then I'm gonna go get a specialty in trauma. Like, all right, we heavily trauma informed now, right? But I'm talking about 2006. Like, I got certified. I went away to get certified in trauma, things like that. That I just wasn't going to be average. I wasn't going to be your average therapist, that I was going to be the best therapist that I could be, because, again, I was there for the sake of my people. In reality, I'm there for, and when I say my people, I'm going to bring it home. Like, I'm there for my own brother. I'm there for my own sister. Like, that's the way I connected with these young people in the group homes. So for a long period of time, I did work with in group homes, but I really wanted to do the tough cases where people, like a person that is really struggling with bipolar. Like, I wanted to take that case because I wanted to assure that I was sound in my craft, and I just wasn't giving supportive care. So,
and you speaking on something that I think all three of us could probably relate to, just being respected and taken seriously, in this field as black men, and not always just being the person to go be the body, to go in there and insert yourself and be the body. That just resonated with me. Tell me some more about what K.E.Y.S is doing, and how your relationship still is with Morgan, or and K.E.Y.S, or just is K.E.Y.S just doing its own thing separate from Morgan. But tell me more about K.E.Y.S and what you guys got going on.
big shout out to Morgan for sure. Big shout out to Morgan, because Morgan is the I think that is one of the, Morgan and Coppin, for real, because I think that one of the things we overlook in our city, one of the things we overlook in Baltimore, is our human capital, and Morgan and Coppin is pushing them out, and a lot of times we overlooking it, but Morgan and Coppin is pushing them out. So big shout out to both. So what K.E.Y.S is doing is what I strove to do back in 2003. Every example that I had in the work field, whether I spent a little time as an unofficial lobbyist, advocating for increased service delivery with a couple of different agencies. I spent a little time in the school, with schools, Baltimore City Schools. I spent a little time as a practitioner. I spent a little time as with University of Maryland. What I found with each system was that there were red tape. That red tape for us as people who want to give, right? We want to do justice. We want to help. That red tape stops us from being the best that we can be. So let's take a case in point. You're a social worker in the school system and a child is having trouble with truancy. If you have a great relationship with the family and you have a great relationship with that child, and I'm talking about a round the way relationship. I'm not talking about this great school relationship. Oh boy, I'm coming to get you. You're not in school. Your mother at work. I'm calling her. I'm telling her to come. Matter of fact, leave the door open because I'm going to come up in the bed and wake him up. He getting up and he going to school, right? That's not okay in those systems.
Right.
We would rather call a truancy officer. Look, I'm not calling an officer or a child. Let's make that clear. I'm not calling anyone who's called an officer or a child if I have the ability to do something different.
Right.
So what K.E.Y.S strove to do was take that innate skill set that we have as men and as women and put it back in our neighborhood. Because if I'm in the same neighborhood, now I'm not originally from Baltimore, right? But I spent a little bit of time around the way in Baltimore. All right. So if I have those relationships, say on Division Street, I'm at a school and I have kids that's on Division Street, but you know what? My man still live on Division Street. I'm there every afternoon. I still play ball down the street. I know these little kids. The idea that I have to come to you as a therapist, the idea that I have to come to you as a mental health professional is a fallacy. I can come to you as Muhammad. I can come to you as Mr. Moore. Because of the relationship that I already have, that doesn't stop me from giving from the skill set that I have. So what we try to do is we try to identify people and then say, look, go be comfortable in your own environment. You create what that therapeutic environment looks like. Yes, you are a therapist and you have a job, but your job is not limited to your one-on-one interaction with a particular client. Your job really is how do I have the most impact on those who I serve? Some of that is going to be a one-on-one or a parent or a therapeutic session. And some of that is going to be, boy, stop playing with me. And we're going to have to do what we have to do to make sure that you do right. And I think that is what K.E.Y.S brings. K.E.Y.S allows those who have been able to become mental health professionals to not only be that, but also be their innate self and bring that back to their community. And that looks different, for each area or each hub that we're in. And I'm proud of the fact that I can just hone off program after program that we do. Music therapy. Our music therapy is our ability to deal with trauma. We talk about exposure therapy, like we can connect it back to what it's supposed to be. So we talk about exposure therapy and how exposure therapy reduces the physiological stress of trauma. All right, so we're gonna do exposure therapy. We're gonna have you talk, we're gonna have you re-experience, but we're gonna have you do it in a way that you love. Let's write this rhyme and let's get in the studio and let's hear you rap about it and let's see if it's dope. But in reality, what I have you doing is talking about the trauma that you experience and having other people talk about it, normalizing it in a way where we can find a way to heal from it. So we do stuff like that. But when I bring it to my young people, I'm never saying therapeutic. I'm never talking about that. I'm saying let's get in this booth and give me 16. And if you ain't got it, then you're gonna learn how to give it because I'm gonna give you somebody that you look up to work with you with it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Having that ability to get out of the traditional box and sense of what serving the people is like. And that's something I think is, while you've talked about how therapy and mental health has become seemingly more, I don't want to say popular, but it's getting a little bit more light to it. I think it's very important for us as professionals to not put ourselves in the box and how we serve the people. So I mean, that's very refreshing to hear that.
Absolutely.
Now, this pandemic has affected a lot of people, and including the mental health field. How has Keys been able to kind of navigate the pandemic, as well as how has it affected you? How have you been able to kind of navigate it from a personal standpoint as well?
Yeah. So I think that they coexist. So the role that Keys took, and I think that this is the benefit of us just being flexible and being able to direct our energy whichever way we need to. We literally became advocates in this. So quietly, we've been knocking on everybody's door, whether it be the governor's office, whether it be our state senators, whether it be our delegates, whether it be Baltimore City political officials, to take from the door. Everybody takes mental health serious. But dollars show where you really, what you really care about. When we look at budget and we look at line items, we can kind of identify what somebody prioritizes. So we've been pushing to ensure that mental health is prioritized, but not just that it's prioritized in a way that makes sense. So there was that we already know that, the idea of this virtual therapy was accepted for a while. But there was an effort, because of dollars, to pull that back. Like, as mental health professionals, there was an effort. We was almost done. We was going to have to go back in the homes and have one-on-one sessions, and we know that wasn't really going to happen for a large portion of people, and it shouldn't have, because people weren't safe. So we had to become advocates to ensure that, our field is taken serious. But we got to push a little harder. We have to be advocates for our field. We, as mental health professionals and as males, real talk, I got to call us out. We are too comfortable going with what somebody tells us we have to do. Somebody comes up with a Komar or whatever, it's a new rule. Oh man, the rule changed. This is what we got to do. No, it's not. No, we don't just got to say okay. We can say that this don't make sense and advocate on our own behalf. And I say that as men because our sisters are out there. Actually, they out there. But as men, we're a little quiet. We're going along with it because we get in a position where we focus on the business and the business only and the work. But the advocacy portion of our work has to remain strong. So my push is that we start pushing the same way, or we start lobbying the same way the medical field lobbies. There's no way that in this pandemic, somebody was going to tell a doctor you couldn't do virtual doctor visits.
Man, you bring up such a strong point that I've always had for years in my beef with the ASWB and the different licensing and all of that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, I see the validity in that and all of that. That's great, but as mental health therapists, there's so much red tape. There's so many qualifiers and all these other things. Like we have to pay for licensing every 2 years, and there are people that are medical doctors, like you said, that they don't have to do these type of things for years and years and years, and we get paid the least. You know what I mean? And it's like I always said, like, as much as we advocate for our clients and everything else, we are the last people to truly advocate for ourselves. And it's like, how do you find, what ways did you find to do that in the midst of saving the world, doing everything, but then saying, hey, I need to put myself in position to advocate for us all?
So I think strong team. Like I blissfully, right? I didn't start out like this. It took time, but I don't have to question what my team is doing on a day-to-day. And because I don't have to question that, and I don't have to live in that space, and I have great supervisors that support my team, my lane is different now. But I've always been, now we gonna go back to my story. I've always been that knucklehead that has something to say. That same energy that I had where you wasn't just gonna tell me anything and I was just gonna roll with it. I brought that into my profession, and I took the time to not accept being average. So I was good at what I did. So because I was good at what I did, I was able to advocate within the systems that I was in. And because I was able to advocate within the systems I was in, they put me in a position to advocate for them on a state level. Those relationships became my own. So now I'm not advocating for their organization. I'm advocating for us as a field. I'm advocating for us as clinicians, but I'm also advocating for us as Black men. Like, Black men should have a stronger voice in our field. We are in a field that needs more Black males, but the Black males that we have can't be silent either, because there are Black males that are in this field doing amazing work. But if we're silent, we're going to allow people to own our narrative that Black men aren't in this field doing good work. And that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And, we're here talking about mental health in Black males and stigmas. What would you tell somebody that is seeking or thinking about seeking mental health and mental health services?
So it's a lot. It's a lot that I say there, but I think that in this case, I'll give you this. Emotional health is the basis of everything everything who we are. So if you're not emotionally well, you're not going to be well in your relationships with your significant others. If you're not emotionally well, you're not going to do well and present well in your professional life. If you're not emotionally well, I'm going to get the best of you when we play sports. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a level of normalcy that we just have to bring to this. And what I like to tell people is forget the mental health component of it. Like, we got to start just on the basic level. Bro, if you angry all the time, so you got to change that. You got to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't got to go to the depression, right? Or we don't have to go to the anxiety. We can go to, you're not achieving your goals in life, and you may just be angry. Mm-hmm. Or your lady just got you twisted all the time, and everybody else feeling it. Like, you got us, my emotional wellness not good because you're not right at home. So I like to just break it down just to our ability to have conversations with one another and just feel good about ourselves and feel good about life. And I think that when we start doing that, when we start having conversations about just being like, for man, right? For men, it's tough just talking about, yo, are you happy? Mm. Like, is that a comfortable? Is that a comfortable question to ask another male? Like, yo, are you happy? Like, that's where I want to get to with this. And I think that if we start there, those more significant challenges that we experience with regards to mental health, we'll get to them, and it'll be easier to have those conversations when we just start dealing with the basics.
Absolutely. That's definitely good. Definitely appreciate that. I do have one question. What are some of your self-care strategies as an African American male who's leading a great organization, if I might say so myself? What are some of the things that you help kind of keep you grounded and keep you with the fresh ideas, the drive to want to continue to do it each and every day?
So I'm not good when it comes to we gotta keep it 100. I'm not good when it comes to the self-care piece. But what keeps me I do have some for sure. I just don't use them that often like I'm supposed to. So sports is one, working out is one, but I can't tell you the last time I got on a court or a field. I don't know when the last time I was in the gym. But if I needed it, it's there for me. All right.
Got you.
That's there. One thing that I do, and it's coming up, I take 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks, uninterrupted time in somewhere different in Africa every year.
Oh wow.
And what I do, I'm not living it up when I go. I'm in the shanty for a little bit. I'm in the village. I might be in an area where it may not be, like real talk, it may not be it ain't no toilet. Gotta say it ain't no like that, right? Because those humble experiences bring me back to the struggle that we have as African Americans. And it reminds me that even though our struggle is tough, it's real, but when we experience another level of struggle, we understand that we can get through this.
Right.
We can get through this. So that's kind of my drive. And the other thing that I do is when I go back home to Newark, when I go back home to the bricks, I'm from a project called Little Bricks. Little Bricks is boarded up now, but it's still standing. A lot of the people that I was with before I came and had the opportunity to go to college are still doing the same things that we were doing back then. And that's just a reminder that no matter what level of, as an organization, success that we hit, we ain't even close to where we need to be be able to create the change, to change the amount of lives that to a certain extent we're responsible for.
Indeed.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate your feedback. Yeah, sharing your story. And thankful for you taking your time out of your schedule. Just kind of just chat it up with us, talk about, mental health, just talk about your story. And hopefully that, somebody, is impacted. And, we'll kind of help them decide, what, to keep it moving, when it comes to mental health and, how they're feeling. If anybody needs to get in contact, if they wanted to, kind of touch base with K.E.Y.S.
Caution there. Nah, I appreciate it. If anybody wanted to get in contact with me, I'm not the best person on social media. However, somebody got a site out there for me. I think MD.Hammond, something like that. MD.Hammond. Okay. But in reality, just go to the K.E.Y.S site. K.E.Y.S underscores empowers on social media, and KeysEmpowers.org is our website. I may not be on social media, but I have a team that does a great job. And even though I may not be as accessible on a day-to-day. I would like to think that my work is, and I'm constantly pushing that work, and we're constantly doing something. So please feel free to reach out, and please feel free to get involved as we have opportunities for people who just want to get involved to support young people and to support our elders. We have the opportunities for that, and platforms like this create the opportunity for us to get that word out there. So want to thank y'all brothers for what y'all doing, for being unapologetically male, for being unapologetically strong, and for being unapologetically black.
Appreciate that. Appreciate again. Emilio, you got anything?
Oh man, I'm good to go. I'm good
All right.
to go, man. Definitely appreciate you and your work, and definitely keeping that up north spirit alive. Definitely appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we'd like to thank everyone again for joining us on Unapologetically Male, Surviving Society's Stigmas, Standards, and Systems. Once again, you can follow us on all of our social media outlets. You can catch us on J-Pope and Connections on our Facebook page. You can follow my page at Dwayne Pate Jr., Emilio Stewart on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm D Pate Jr., as well as on YouTube. We'll have clips of the interviews on YouTube as well. So look forward to connecting with you. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll make sure that we get them, review them, and try to get you an answer as soon as possible. Once again, just help us spread this word, help us spread this message where we're just trying to help identify African-American men's stories and help them share their stories so that we can understand, that, we are strong. We are resilient. We have the power to kind of continue to keep that success going, but people need to hear our story. And it can't be, something on the news, but we got to be able to push our own story because we know that society is not going to push our story for us. So let's keep sharing this message, and I hope to see you next week.
Yep.